Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
Hey folks, I'm Dappho, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
And I'm Benjamin Coy, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
Joining us is Marline. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, so glad you are here, Marline. So before we get into what's happening for Pride Afrique 2023, tell us about yourself, the work you do, and Pride Afrique in general.
Okay, so I'm Marline Oluchi. I work in the communications and advocacy space in Nigeria on gender justice and LGBTQI plus rights. So Pride Afrique started in 2020 when, during the lockdown, the whole COVID-19 lockdown, we needed a community, a sense of community where we could come together and celebrate Pride, even though we could not go outside. So a couple of us came together, and we have Kenny, the founder of Pride Afrique, and we spoke with Kenny, and we put up a virtual Pride for the year. For just for Africans, both Africans on the continent and Africans in diaspora, but an African event, intercontinental. And I think that was the first continental Pride on the continent. Before then, we had only had both virtual and physical countrywide prides, never one for the entire continent. So after that, in 2021, we had the same virtual Pride. We had Pride Afrique 2022 to last year. And then this year, we're going to have Pride Afrique 2023. That's why we're here. And also, interestingly now, Pride Afrique is now an official program under the Center for Human Rights in University of Pretoria. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Way to pivot.
Absolutely. So, Marline, please tell us about what's planned for Pride Afrique 2023, including your objectives.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much really excited for this year's event because, like I said earlier, we have always had just countrywide, both physical and virtual Pride events in Africa, right? Like SA would have their own, and other countries who could put on Pride. Then we had Pride Afrique, which came, and we now started having virtual Pride events. But for the first time this year, we're actually having the first continental in-person Pride in Africa. This has never happened. So it's historic. It's very urgent considering what is happening on the continent. I think we conceptualize this as a thing to make sure this happens because of especially the legal context of what is happening in different countries around the continent at the moment with legislation, anti-LGBTQI plus legislation. So this year we're having the first ever continental in-person Pride on the continent. I'm quite excited, really. Yeah, and okay, for our objectives. First of all, we're looking at Pride as a protest against the violent laws and practices on increase against the LGBTQIA plus community on the continent. Because look at what is happening in Uganda. Look at has been happening in Ghana. Even I'm from Nigeria, and in Nigeria we have our 14 years. We have our SSMPA that gives different provisions for criminalization, including 14 years imprisonment for some clauses. So it's like there's a lot of violence. There's an uprise for violent legislation against queer existence on the continent. So this is our first objective, to come together in solidarity and have one voice, and make some noise and take a stand. Pride is a protest, so this is like a protest against the really violent legislations coming up everywhere. And it's no wonder that the theme for this year's event is reimagining safety and solidarity. So we are reimagining what our safety looks like now, what it used to look like, and where we're going to. And we're also reimagining what we have done so far and how we can do better as a continent, and not just in silos, as a continent, against the uprising violent laws and practices on the continent against us as a community. Then secondly, we're also looking at engaging as a movement, like I said, to reimagine our safety in today's world. And this also calls for introspection to look at good practices. Which countries on the continent have better legal structures for LGBTQI plus persons, which countries have to some extent provided not just decriminalization, but also protective laws for the community. What are their best practices? How did they get there? How can the rest of us reimagine safety in this context and, adapt what can work in our own respective countries? That's the second objective for the Pride for the year. And then the third objective, we're also looking at interrogating safety in the digital space, because in today's world, a lot of the violence have moved from just the street. It has moved from just, policy corridors and legislative houses, and we have them out there in digital spaces. Digitization has been weaponized to push for support for these bills and laws and policies, to push for social homophobia, to push for more practices that are really, really harmful for the community. Even the anti-rights group that is gaining a lot of momentum on the continent right now, they are getting a lot of build up across social media spaces. So we want to interrogate safety in digital spaces as it relates to micro and macro aggression against the community in Africa, conversion practices. How are these affecting our safety as a community? That's our third objective for Pride this year. And then the fourth objective, we're looking at a call to action in solidarity and owning one voice, because I think it's high time we stand as a continent. There have always been this narrative that being queer is very un-African, right? And this is the rhetoric that anti-rights group have been pushing. A lot of if you look at what has been happening between last year and now in different countries across Africa, in fact, a bulk of the reason why this legislation, these laws are being passed, these bills are being passed into laws, is mostly on the backbone of what countries are defining as family. Right? Like what they are defining as African, as our culture, as our family unit, preserving what they have, the heteronormativity we have adapted and known, right? So we're looking at a call to action, owning our voice and defining what this means for us, right? So this is not something we can keep doing in silos. It's something we have to do together as a community, as Africans. So that is our fourth objective. And lastly, we're also looking at a healing space. So much has been happening, so much. A lot of queer persons on the continent are not out there working for our rights, fighting for our rights out of choice. A lot of the times it's out of necessity. Apart from the fact that, I love my job, I love what I do, but it came from personal advocacy. It came from a personal protest. A lot of us find ourselves doing what we're doing, fighting. And it's a fight that you just keep doing. You don't find time to heal. You don't find time to get some respite, right? You just keep living that trauma in your personal space, in your workspace. It never stops. So this Pride is also, Pride Afrique 2023 is also a space we're looking at to provide a very safe space for healing, to celebrate our resilience. We're here despite everything happening. We're looking at our queer joy. What do we even define? Are we just passing through life, or are there times when we find, some kind of queer collective joy and hope that we are here and we're doing something and we're going to get results, right? So that is also what Pride Afrique 2023 is looking at.
Amazing. So amazing. And, personally for me, seeing how Pride Afrique has grown over the years and where you are now is so inspiring, especially for someone like me that comes from a space and a place where the laws and the society, denigrate queer people and, anything that has to do with queer people overall. However, in Jamaica, they've had Pride since 2015. So coming up in 2 years, it will be 10 years since they've had Pride. So, it's able to happen anywhere. And, I also want to take a moment to mention that Team Rayceen Productions is a media partner for Pride Afrique 2023. And we look forward to continued collaboration and partnership with our organizations. We're so happy to be a part of this. We've done interviews before and been able to be a part of the Pride Afrique experience in that way before. So it's certainly such a pleasure for us here at Team Rayceen Productions to be a part of something that is so groundbreaking, something that is changing lives, changing minds, and bringing change to the entire continent. Tell me a little bit actually about, your principal partner, Pan Africa ILGA.
Okay, so first, I think I would mention that I'm a board member for Pan African Yoga, and it's one of the best things that has happened for the movement on the continent. With over 200 member organizations, PI has it's the Yoga World African Caucus actually, and it's done a lot of work for movement building, especially, and capacitation of the work we do as grassroots organizations on the continent. So when we felt as Pride Afrique, when we felt we were at this place where this physical event needed to happen. I mean, I remember when the first pictures I saw of Pride growing up are from the 90s, the first Soweto Pride back then. And it was, I don't know, even till now as an adult, there's so many images of Pride out there, but I don't get the feeling I get when I see the pictures from the first physical Pride on the continent. Like, this happened in Africa. People were able to come out on the streets and like protest for their rights, for basic human decency because of who they are. Like, when we realized that, hey, we have never had this as a continent, and when we face oppression on the continent, it doesn't come as just individual countries. It's always, oh, African, oh, LGBT people in Africa, oh, it's on African. We realize that this is 2023, and no way, we have never had a Pride for the continent in person. So that was where Pan African ILGA came on board. And from the word go, they were really excited to come on board as our principal partners. Of course, as a young entity, Pride Afrique would not have been able to pull together over 400 organizations, queer persons, government representatives, people from the UN and the rest, like activists. It's not something we can pull from all over Africa and other parts of the world. But then with Pan-African Yoga Conference coming up this year, we got into the partnership with them, since they are mobilizing and they have done a lot of work around mobilizing on the continent. So with their support, Pride Afrique is happening. Without them, this wouldn't even be happening in the first place.
Amazing.
So we're really grateful for the pivotal role they are playing to make this happen.
Certainly. And please tell us, what are some of your future goals for Pride Afrique?
Yeah, so we really hope that going forward, because I remember when we started mobilizing, trying to mobilize resources, talk to funders for this year's event, because Pride Afrique is primarily, before we became institutionalized with the University of Pretoria, we were primarily just, and we still are, primarily just volunteers, queer people on the continent. We always have this mantra of Pride Afrique is for us, by us. We come together every year, we put this up, and we make it happen. Now I'm the chair for this year, so I'm curating the events for the year. And when I started trying to reach out to source for funding for this event, because it's physical, it means more resources. One of the very recurrent questions I keep getting is, even from funders who should know better, who already fund projects on the community, why is Pride necessary? Like, it's wild, first of all, that question existed. So in the future, I hope that people can actually see the relevance of coming together, not just when we have activism like to do, or one really specific programmatic work to do. People can see the importance of showing up through Pride, which has historically been something the community uses as a voice, right? I hope that in the future, it won't be this cumbersome to make this happen. It won't be this cumbersome for us to show up together in solidarity across the continent and once every year, make a stand, talk about, because we're not just coming to have a festival, yay, or a match. We even have all thanks to Pan African Yoga also. We also have like a workshop, a set like workshop where we are going to sit down and have these conversations around the objectives of the Pride on the same day before we have the Pride event. We are coming together, stakeholders are coming to the room to sit down and talk about what is happening in all this context and what can be done. How do we show up better? How do we make sure that we don't take 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward, the way it's been feeling of late? So I hope that in the future, Pride Africa will be able to mobilize more for the movements across the continent. And beyond Pride events, we'll be able to have more activities that could contribute to movement building for the LGBTQIA plus community on the continent. And also, I really, really hope we would go to the place where we are more intersectional and able to be more inclusive. Because I mean, imagine if we could have this in French, we could have this in Portuguese, we could have this in Arabic. Though we try a lot for to inculcate other regions, and especially for language barriers, which is a really huge thing, right? Although we try, but we know that our efforts have not been enough, right? So I hope in the future would have the capacity, because this is for Africa. It's not an Anglophone or a Francophone thing. It is for all of us on the continent to identify. It is a platform and a community for us to build, right? I hope that we would grow enough to be able to be really, really inclusive in the future and carry out movement building projects that actually impact on the community much more than we're doing right now. So
Wow. Wow, Marline, that is all so very amazing. And I'm just excited about it all. And it's so brave, it's so bold, because I feel like, I'm in DC and I'm a little like jaded. We're in a liberal, small, liberal place. We can be our gay selves everywhere, out and about, but we sometimes forget about those who cannot be their full selves everywhere. And so I'm very grateful for Pride Afrique, for shining a light on our wonderful African brothers and sisters, a part of the LGBTQIA2 plus. Okay, so check it out. How can our viewers and listeners learn more about Pride Afrique and support? Mainly support, because y'all need that money. So tell us how we can support more Pride Afrique 2023.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you can check us out on across social media. We are Pride Afrique on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook, and then our website www.prideafrique.org. You can also send us an email. Once you check any of our social media platforms, you would see our email address, you would see our phone numbers to reach out to the team. And also, if you happen to find yourself in South Africa, if you are in Pretoria, you could drop by the Human Rights Center at the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria, and we could attend to you there. So yeah. And also, even though we're having the physical event, it's not taking away, it's just a hybrid event this year. It's not taking away what we started as, because like I said, we started in the COVID lockdown period when all we could do was a virtual event. So even this year, we have our ongoing pre-events already. We've already had like different pre-events. We had our Francophone pre-events yesterday on Twitter. We have had a session on synergizing the work of Africans in diaspora and those back home, looking for ways we could synergize and work better. We have had another pre-event around media and documentation and research for LGBTQIA plus communities in Africa. So we are having ongoing pre-events. Engage with us around social media. You could reach out if you have anything you would want to partner with us on, and we're really, really, really open to platform and partner.
So if you go to one of those sites, you can definitely find out how to get money as well, correct?
Yes, definitely. Reach out to us. Yeah, we'll tell you how to support financially.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Marline. Thank you, Pride Afrique. I'm also very excited for this event. Very excited for what y'all are doing for the diaspora, what you're doing for your brothers and sisters and siblings all the way over there in Africa. So thank you, thank you. Viewers, please look in the description box below and make sure you follow Pride Afrique on social media. Reach out to them through email, go to the website, definitely support them. We need to make sure this is as successful as possible. So yes, thank you, Marline, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
To those who are watching, please follow Team Rayceen on social media.
And click around our YouTube channel and check out our other interviews, vlogs, forums, and more. And while you're at it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Viewers, thank you for watching.